everyone, and welcome to another special installment of the Discussions. Today I have Eyal, the product architect at Bancor Foundations, and he's here to speak with us about his latest project that he launched in conjunction with EOS Nation, deweb. So welcome to the show, Eyal.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it looks like it's a beautiful day in Tel Aviv. Sunny, sunshine.
Definitely.
Yeah. So before we jump into deweb, I kind of want to give a little bit of context of how you arrive to this idea, because I think if you just jump right into it, you might get a little bit lost. And I have to admit, like when I first ran across the website, I was a little bit confused with what you guys were trying to do. But I think if we follow kind of your career and the projects that you build on, we have a better idea of what deweb's about. So I know you co-founded at Meta Cafe, a very popular video sharing platform. And then after that endeavor, you got into Bancor, you got into blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and you launched this really interesting project called Creator.eco. Can you tell us a little bit about Creator.eco first?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I start a little bit earlier because it is actually very much connected, and it is the story starts in 2011. At that point, I was probably 13 years. Yeah, 13 years. I was internet entrepreneur, building internet services. Meta Cafe was really the last one. Before that, in 1998, I created a company. I founded a company called Contact Networks, contact.com. It was a social network before web apps were even a thing. We built it as a downloadable application because no web apps in '98. But I've been busy with building network services for internet services, online services for a long time. And in 2007 and in 2011, I saw Bitcoin, and that kind of blew my mind completely. I immediately knew that my future is going to be around that type of technology. And it took almost a year to figure out what I want to build on technology, and after a year it came up to this kind of core concept of let's just let anyone create their own currency, create their own asset, create their own token, just like we did with Meta Cafe. It's funny, but before Meta Cafe, we're all consumers of video, but we were not able to publish and broadcast video. And we definitely saw that the implication of allowing all of a sudden anyone to broadcast video just changed our culture, like fundamentally. And I was thinking to myself, if the same thing happens with assets, the effect of that, because we all been users and holders of currencies and assets of all kinds of sorts, whether it's fiat currencies or shares in companies, stocks and bonds and frequent flyer miles or what have you. So we use that instrument in so many different ways in our daily life, but we were not able to issue and create it on our own. So the core idea started from there in 2012. And in 2013, we launched the first product, which was a user-generated currency platform that was completely centralized. The reason we wanted to do that is just to see how end users interact with their own generated tokens. How can they use that? The use case that we had was I would say local currencies. That was the use case. And we piloted it with a group of moms that were in Tel Aviv, and they had a local currency, and they made about 1,000 transactions per day, like a group of 10,000 moms. And that was a big success. But after a year, we saw that there is a problem, that there is a challenge. And the challenge, I can talk about it for a long time, but it can be summed up to the fact that that there was no liquidity for the token. People could not buy it and cannot sell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that created, let's call it, monetary challenges within the community.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know what to do, because it's not like we could make those local currencies liquid, because no exchange is going to list them, you know.
Yeah.
And even if they did, there's not going to be enough volume and enough trading activity in order for these local currencies to be really liquid and have a price discovery versus the dollar or whatever. And at that time, Ethereum started to gain ground, and we started to looking into that. And we thought maybe we can solve that liquidity challenge with this new technology called smart contracts that is running on blockchain.
Yeah.
And as we were looking into that, that ended up with the creation of the Bancor protocol. The Bancor protocol was invented to solve the liquidity problem for user-generated tokens,
Oh, that's interesting.
user-generated currencies.
I always thought Bancor was kind of to solve all the Ethereum ERC tokens. Again, like they could be seen as, community tokens, but you were looking at something much, much smaller. You were looking at just your local community of nuns that were doing these transactions and having these problems. Okay, that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah. So when we did Bancor at the same time, or shortly after we launched Bancor, the entire industry kind of exploded with many user-generated tokens. It was generated by small groups and tech teams for all different projects, and those newly generated tokens, they needed liquidity as well. And we leveraged Bancor protocol and the technology that we built to provide liquidity for more than 150 different tokens that were generated throughout 2017, the beginning of 2018. But what, we all know what happened. The market has crashed, and a lot of those tokens crashed with it. But it didn't change anything for the core principle, the core concept of we have a solution for liquidity, a solution that is very different from exchanges and what we had before that, and can support much lower scale and doesn't need even a counterparty. I mean, all you need in order to trade your token to another is to do a transaction with a smart contract. And that smart contract would essentially price your token, and the pricing will change following your purchase. So the price discovery is happening asynchronously with Bancor, because it's just one side that needs to trade in order to change the price, and not two sides need to be matched like it works in exchanges. There is a name for this problem. It's called the double coincidence of once. You can read about it in Wikipedia. And we kind of solved that problem for trading. And we're very pleased with that. And we're very happy to see that the solution was taking off. And then that EOS is adopting Bancor protocol for the RAM trading. And Steemit as well, leveraging Bancor protocol for their user-generated tokens, and we saw Uniswap and Kyber adopting our protocol. So a lot of adoption for our ideas. That was great. But even though we solved the liquidity problem for small scale assets, it was not good enough for the end user. Because the end user wouldn't use Ethereum so easily. And I mean, it had a big barrier, because just to issue a single transaction on Ethereum, guess what? You need Ether. And good luck getting Ether. Send some of your non-technical friends to get some Ether, and see how long it takes and how easy
Yeah, yeah,
So we figured out that, Ethereum might be great for, I would say, financial utilities and more
yeah,
professional and more, business oriented use cases, but it's not good enough for the masses, for the
yeah,
public, for the
yeah.
end user. And when we figured that out, I think it was at about the end of 2018 that we decided, you know what, we need to, it was even before that, we need to support a blockchain that could enable free transaction. And we didn't like the 15 seconds as well. We thought it should be quicker.
Yeah.
And this is why we made our bet on EOS. We met the people. We were very, very impressed with the vision and with the technology, and we started to implement Bancor on EOS. And in the beginning of 2019, we released it. We released Bancor on EOS. Bancor was the only dApp, the only decentralized network that worked across those two blockchains.
Yeah.
Having a cross-blockchain kind of bridge to move BNT from Ethereum to EOS and back. And that was kind of the foundation for building a user-generated token solution. And we launched our first take on that with creator.eco toward the end of 2019. And
Wait, so Creator.eco was actually launched on EOS?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I always assume it's okay. That's okay. So go on. Sorry.
Was EOS only, and we had a lot of challenges with Creator.eco that that we learned a great deal from. So, for example, we gave free EOS accounts. So, we did it because we wanted to kind of move fast and see what's happening. But obviously that was abused in any imaginable way that
yes, yes.
We also figure out that users have no ability to manage the resource. The resource crisis was, shortly after we released. So that was also a disaster with, expecting end users to kind of deal with that. That was just not realistic. Also important, we used a different token model for that the user have generated. We used a simple liquid token as described in the Bancor white paper. It's called a liquid token. It's essentially a token that has Bancor protocol built into it. So it doesn't need a separate liquidity pool. Think about it as a token with its own liquidity pool in its own smart contract, which is a very, very efficient way to generate a token, a new token, making sure that it's liquid and having a solid liquidity. So that's what we launched, and we had to require anyone that wanted to generate a new token under that model to deposit an initial reserve. And that was, it's part of how the liquid token kind of model works. And that was, both complicated and also a barrier, because you need to obtain some BNT in order to issue your own token. So we took all those learnings and we kind of processed them and thought about how we want to move forward. And about 6 months ago, we came up with this concept of deweb.
Okay.
And part of that concept was that we didn't like the fact that so we're going to let people create tokens and it's all going to be from creator.eco. It seemed like too centralized for us, and we wanted to kind of look for something that is much more decentralized and scalable, and this is how we came up with the whole idea behind deweb that that actually, you know, separates the function between the different parties that are taking part of running any online service that you know of. So, you know, I've been
Mm-hmm.
running online services for the last 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that it's always, there's three important roles in every online service, three important functions, and they're all done within the same company traditionally, if we look
Mm-hmm.
at today's online service. And the first function is, you know, designing and developing and building the service. It's the development part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's about product design, it's about UX design, it's about coding.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing that you need to do with online service, um, that is different from software, because if you were in the software industry, the first thing was all of it. Just take
Yeah.
that and you
Yeah.
ship that.
Yeah.
But with the service, with online services, you also need to host your software. You need to host the
Right.
server. You need to
Right.
have a server farm. You need to make sure it's up and running. You need to make sure that it has enough provision resources for what it
Mm-hmm.
needs to, that the performance are adequate, that
Yeah.
there are no bugs and database corruption and all those things that we like DevOps,
Yeah.
development operations.
Yeah.
So let's call it the operational part of building an online service. And then there is the third part of it, which I like to call the monetization of the service. And
Mm-hmm.
the monetization, again, it's not about building the software. It's not about hosting it. It's
Yeah.
about getting it to users. It's about pricing it. It's
Mm-hmm.
about getting users to use it. It's about supporting those users. It's about kind of fitting it's about the product market fit. It's
Yeah.
the last mile, if you will. So who do you
Yeah.
target with your product?
Yeah.
And we, you know, and we call it the marketing essentially.
Mm.
And that's a third function. And the innovation behind deweb was that in the age of blockchain, for the first time, those three different functions, A, they don't need to be the same company.
Mm-hmm.
B, you can have multiple of each one.
Yeah.
So you can write, as an example, a decentralized Facebook. Okay, so maybe I will write the code for this decentralized Facebook, and I'm just writing a simple social network, and then someone else is taking my server software and running it on their servers, and they operate it, make it available, and then what we like to call marketers, they can take their own domain and point their domain to the operator of their choice, because there
Mm-hmm.
can be
Mm-hmm.
many operators of my software. Anyone can get it and run it.
Mm-hmm.
And the marketer point to the operator of his choice and is going to get users and, you know, price the service and support them and you know, sell the ad space maybe if that's their
Mm-hmm.
business model of choice. And the idea is that the revenue that is generated by the service is essentially splitted between the all the parties that take part in providing that service. So let's just, for this example, in that decentralized Facebook, let's say there's ad revenue. So that ad revenue from people buying the ad is going to go to the marketer, but the marketer will need to pay out royalties to the operator that they choose. And each operator can price their service however they want. I can be an
Mm-hmm.
operator and I can say, you know, if you want to use my servers, my infrastructure, guess what? You're going to need to provide me royalties with 20% of your ad revenue. And
Mm-hmm.
the developer that build the social network can say, you know what, you can use my software, no problem. But guess what? You're going to have to pay me 15% of your ad revenue that you generate thanks to the software that I implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow, someone can say, you know what, I'm also a developer and I like this decentralized Facebook, but I think that the group software, the Facebook group, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
discussion is not good enough. I want to build a new one. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe as a developer, I'll build a better, improved a group management software or discussion board. And now, operator will say, you know what, this guy, I think this solution is better. So all of a sudden you have, multiple developers, not just one.
Well, I mean, that's
That
a perfect break, because you put down a lot of it, and I want to kind of digest it a little bit. So yeah, I mean, the closest reference point I have to something like this is kind of like the Steam model, and we talked about this a little bit before, where you have like the Steam blockchain, right? And then people who wrote the Steam code. So I guess like the people who wrote the Steam code would be the developers. The operators would
right.
be the I guess the nodes, the witnesses running these softwares. And the marketers are the individual domains, steam.com, busy.org, a number of different domains on the platform.
So every blockchain is using a similar model. You can think about it. So the developer with the Ethereum blockchain, or like the Ethereum Foundation, and they got their incentive from pre-mine tokens and the ICO funds. And then there's the operators, which are the miners essentially in Ethereum. And if you look about the marketers, you can think about everyone building a service that has Ethereum in the backend is the kind of marketer of the Ethereum platform. But this ecosystem is more like backend, high-end ecosystem that it's with high barrier to entry. Where what we're talking about with deweb, it's actually it's not an infrastructure layer like in Ethereum. It's an online service layer that translates to some web interface that that you can use. And with the software that the developer built with deweb is not just the backend blockchain infrastructure. The software that is built on deweb is the actual user interface, is the actual product that people is going to use. But any operator can take that software and run it, and every marketer can take that.
So you got me.
Middle. Let me do not disturb. Maybe I'll prevent that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if that works. So where was I? Oh,
you were talking about how everyone could take. It's not just the development layer, but it's basically the whole thing, and the end product is a front end web application essentially.
Yeah. So just to go back to that. So with deweb, it's the developer is building a full service that has user interface, everything, and the operator can operate the service, and the market can configure and customize and market that service. Marketers, of course, many could do that. So it goes all the way to the user level. It's not like the backend infrastructure layer, if you will, you see on blockchain. With deweb, it's really built for online service, and it uses blockchain as infrastructure because it's only the existence of blockchain that allows all those operators to share the same global journal. So because all those operators and all those marketers, everyone is sharing the same global journal, it's like they are using the same system and the same data store. And that was not possible before. This is only possible now to even architect an online service in such a way that you have so many operators, but that's fine because they all share the same data. They can all issue transaction on the same ledger. Those transactions will be consistent and well ordered, and you can build stuff on top of that. So it's kind of changing how we think about online service to something that is closer to email. So email is the world's most popular online service.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
no email.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's no email Inc. Company that monopolize it,
Mm-hmm.
because this service is really, truly decentralized. You have different operators, different people that kind of make it accessible to the user. The reason that this could be done with email and not with Google and not with Facebook and not with Amazon and not with all the popular online services that we the online service, the reason is that email does not need a database. It does not need a single shared data store between all its operators. It just needs communication.
Mm-hmm.
It just needs to be able to send information between them, but they don't need to agree about any set of data, quote unquote, consensus, ultimate truth to all of them. And that infrastructure layer, that blockchain layer that can function as a global, public, decentralized ledger slash journal, now it can be done. And this is what deweb is taking advantage of, to that capability, in order to offer a completely new paradigm for building online services in a way that does not allow the service operator to monopolize its own service, that does not create an a monopolization of network effect, which is exactly what we're seeing at Amazon, exactly what we're seeing in Facebook and WhatsApp and YouTube. Those are all monopolization of network effects, because network effect is great. You know, the internet has a network effect, email has a network effect. We all enjoy it because so many people using the internet, so many people use the email. This is what makes it so useful. But the value goes to us. We gain this I would say the value that is created by the network effect. But when we're talking about Facebook and we're talking about Amazon, they are the only party that monopolize on their network effect. They translate that into profit, and they're able to benefit from that, which is, you know, what we saw, for example, before the internet. There was AOL, right? So AOL was monopolizing the network effect of their own network, sending, you know, even going as far as doing a movie with Tom Hanks, You've Got Mail, right?
Yeah.
That's all, you know, to bring people to their network. And we saw is that, you know, it was replaced with a standard, replaced with the internet, that allowed us, the end user, to be the sole beneficiary of that network effect of large network that so many people are connected to. And this is what deweb is all about.
Cool, cool. So you mentioned a lot of, you know, like, I think I understand a little bit more, but I still think it's a little bit abstract. So give us an example of what let's say a Facebook like social media platform built on deweb will work, and how would that compare to like a traditional, you know, Facebook? So let's say I am a marketer, I am the front end person, I'm the one interacting with the users, I'm offering the service of allowing you to connect with your friends, right? So I go to my operator. I'm assuming this case it would be EOS Nation, because that's one of the first operators. And so the developers, how does the developer fit into this? Like, who is the developer in this case?
So in that case, you can imagine that in a Facebook like online service, you're likely to start with a single developer.
Yeah.
But if the service is catching on and people are happy, and then you can have many developers, in the same way that if you look at your phone right now and the stuff that you use on your phone, it comes from many different developers, because there are many different applications on your phone. Facebook also have many different applications on Facebook, which is the photos and the status and the, you know, the feed and the comments and the Facebook groups and Facebook video. And we can think about you know, many different sub application in Facebook are all based on the same social graph. So you can imagine that in a deweb kind of platform and a deweb type of social network, you will have many developers that create a solution for discussion forums.
Mm-hmm.
You have many developers that creating a gallery, a
Mm-hmm.
photo gallery that you can tag your friend. And as an operator, even as marketer, you can actually control which software, which developer software you want to offer to your users.
Mm-hmm.
So you can almost think about it as the app store for the backend, right? That I want to market a Facebook, and I think this model from that developer is great, and this model from that developer is amazing, and I'm going to take all of them and combine them, and they all use the same data that is
Mm-hmm.
behind this thing because it's all
Mm-hmm.
stored on the blockchain. So they
Mm-hmm.
all use the same data, but I can pick whatever I think is the best solution. I can change it along the way. You picked your own, just like you picked the EOS Nation maybe as your first operator, but guess what? Tomorrow you're going to change to a new operator because maybe they're closer to your users or whatever reason, and you want to use them. So as a marketer, assuming that you registered your domain, you point to the operator of your choice. It's permissionless, so it's very very easy to do. You don't need to ask permission for anyone, and you will start getting users to use your platform. And if you're successful and users are coming, and your specific instance, you can call it a gateway. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you operate a gateway to the social network. It's kind of a ISP model, if you will. That we have so many ISPs, but
Mm-hmm.
only single internet that they all serve. So think about many people like you. They serve a gateway to the network, but because everyone is sharing all the data, then they all function as this network. And if you as a marketer, you're doing well and you're successful, you're getting users, revenue is generated on your service. In that case, the operator as well as the developer will get the royalties that they charge, and it's
Mm-hmm.
up to them to charge whatever royalty they want because it's a free market.
Mm-hmm.
If some of them overcharge you, then you will switch because there's nothing that lock you down. There's nothing that lock your users to you as a marketer. A
Mm-hmm.
user can go tomorrow to another marketer and essentially move his account to this new marketer and say, just going to use his gateway. I like his choice of software better. I like his customer support better. I'm going to use him, and they can change it. So it creates a situation when nothing is no power is held within any specific party.
Mm-hmm.
Every developer can be replaced with a different software that works with the same data model. Every operator can be changed to another operator, and every marketer can be replaced with another, just like you switch your ISP or telephone provider.
Mm-hmm.
And even if all the marketers and all the operators are gone tomorrow, even all the developers are gone tomorrow, because there is a ledger, a journal in the blockchain that kind of lists all the activity that was done in the social network. Anyone can now just set up a new operator, just take
Yeah. Just
the
take that back
software
and yeah. And
and
just
replay the events from the blockchain to kind of rebuild the database, and
yeah.
you have it up and running. So it's something that cannot be lost.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of to show that there's no central control. This is just a standard. It's almost
Yeah.
like turning a service into a standard of how this service is the data model, so everyone can build around it, everyone can operate it, and everyone can market it. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
deweb is all about.
That's that's very very cool. And I wish we have more time because we haven't even dug into how the royalty engine works. Like I think this is still for me. This is still a relatively new concept that I'm trying to wrap my head around. But I feel I understand it a lot better. But again, I would love to have you on for another session when we get even deeper dive into how the whole thing works. I already set up a token for Up for Discussions. So, if you want to get some Up for Discussions tokens for my podcast,
Hmm.
you could go check it out. I'm trying to figure out how everything works. And as I, learn a little bit more about it, I'll be continuing sharing with you, our listeners, on how that system works. But before we close out, I want to um, ask you, what is the next thing on the roadmap? What's the next thing coming for deweb? You have one operator now, EOS Nation. Are you looking to
Yeah.
add more operators? Are you looking
Yes.
to, yeah? What's the idea?
So we're looking to add new operators. If your listeners, anyone want to become an operator, very easy. Just at that point we will uh, provide some guidance of what you need. It shouldn't take long, and within a few hours you can set yourself up as your own operator. You can also decide that you want to be just a marketer and
Mm-hmm.
just use EOS Nation as your operator and point your domain to their server, and then you don't have to run. But it's actually really easy to run because we build a system. At this point, it can run on Google Firebase,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of very easy to set up, very easy to manage, serverless kind of a solution by Google. It's I would say the bleeding edge of client server technology, and which is, by the way, one of the biggest advantage of deweb in general, that it making building decentralized application to something which is as simple as building an application on Google Firebase, which is like as simple as you can get with building application. Just make it so easy, because you don't need to think about uh, even in the blockchain aspect. You don't need to think about fiat in and out. You don't think about user accounts. You don't need to think about recovery. Everything is taken care of the platform by the deweb framework. So it's really easy to build application on top of it, as everyone is invited to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, if from the product perspective, if you ask what's kind of the next thing, so right now we launched, as you mentioned, a very kind of basic solution for user generated tokens.
Yeah.
We're very proud of the solution because it uses the most, I think, advanced, sophisticated token model that ever came out from Bancor, um, which is a liquid token that uses USDB, a stable coin, as a token. And all the tokens that are created in the system are beginning with 100% reserve ratio, which
Mm-hmm.
means that they all begin in the first second of their existence as a fully stable coin. And
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? That it doesn't matter how much you buy of the token, it's still going to be $1. If
Mm-hmm.
if it's just, let's say, if it's the first second of his life. But we allow this something that we call allowance.
Mm-hmm.
That is by default 2%. And allowance is the rate in which the reserve is reduced from 100% on a weekly basis. So the
Mm-hmm.
default allowance is 2%, which means that the reserve will be reduced by 2% a week,
Mm-hmm.
2% of what it is. So the reserve start with 100. After a week, it will be 98%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when the reserve is 98%, it means that the token will start, very small movement relative to the market dynamics. So
Mm-hmm.
if people buy a lot of your token, it's not going to be $1. Maybe it's going to be $1.50,
Mm-hmm.
after a while. But
Mm-hmm.
it's still going to be around $1, because 98% reserve, it means that it's really close to being a stable coin. It's not
Yeah.
completely stable, but as time goes by and the reserve ratio is reduced, then the the price movement reflect more and more the market dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
and the token price start to respond more and more to the fact that it's being bought a lot or sold a lot, and it will go up and down. The price will go up and down accordingly. And that's really cool, because we saw a lot of problems when people just issue token that were completely speculative
Yeah.
and completely volatile, and we saw all these ICOs where the tokens go
Pump and
up and
dumps.
down and
Yeah.
it's going crazy. Not gonna happen. Yeah, can't happen with deweb. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna buy $1 million worth of a token. It's not gonna move almost at all.
Mm-hmm.
So and maybe after few years, the token in that default rate of 2%, which you can change, but in that default rate, maybe after 3 years, the token will start getting into the same volatility that you see with tokens that were issued by ICOs, that are liquid, that have good liquidity. So, but it will get there only after years. So the token has time to build its own value, to and reduce the risk for the early and the profit for those who enter early, because entering early, that doesn't mean you need to do 10x on your money within a week. That doesn't make sense. Maybe and you lose the risk to lose your money, but you lose the upside of making like outrageous, which is, I think, the right thing to do with new tokens as they establish their own value, as they establish their own utility, and that's how we build a system. Now, the cool thing about it is that the reserve, as it's being reduced, it emits dollars from the reserve outside. Because if the token was bought with $1,000 on the first day, after a week, the reserve is reduced to 98%. It means it does not need thousands of reserve anymore. It only needs 980 in the reserve. Because the reserve was reduced. It initially had $1,000, but after a week, it doesn't need the $100,000. So it has $20 extra. And that money is being sent to the token issuer. As the reserve is reduced from 100%, all that money that is being taken out of the reserve, because, by the way, if you wouldn't take the money out of the reserve, it will increase the price. But but we didn't want to do it this way. We think that the price should increase if people are buying the token, interested in the token, not just because
if that
time passed.
Community is growing and more people are getting into it. I see.
But so at that point, what happens is that all this money is being sent to the token issuer as a budget. You issue a token, and that makes sense because he's not getting any pre-mine. The token issuer is not getting any tokens. That's the thing. He's just issuing the token. Now anyone can buy it. But
so as the token issuer, this expectation you be building out that project, and as that project progress, as people buy into a bit more, you kind of reward it from that allowance that you set for yourself.
Exactly. So the allowance is kind of a constant budget that does not affect negatively on the owner, because if I had a pre-mine for the issuer, when he want to sell them, he's going to take down the price. Right.
Exactly.
In this case, the issuer is getting a stable coin, because it's taken right out there. He's not getting his own token, he's getting a stable.
So he's incentivized to kind of keep it going a long term, to keep that allowance coming and even grow that allowance, just because it's kind of, again, it's kind of like that reverse ICO model, where instead of giving someone a whole bunch of money and kind of just hoping something will come out of it, you're like, okay, well, we give you a little bit of money, show us what you're doing. If you're doing well, we buy more tokens and you get a bigger allowance.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
And that's the cool thing about that model is that you need to put a down payment when you create a new token. So you can really experiment really, really easy. You don't need to commit funds. You try out stuff. And this is extremely important for mass adoption. That people can tinker with it, can try stuff with it, can see, what catches and what's not. And when you need to, deposit fund in the reserve and make decisions of, what should be the reserve ratio as it used to be on Creator.eco, we discovered this is way, way too complicated for the common person. And this is why we introduced this whole new model. We call it the Bancor DRR liquid token, and DRR stands for dynamic reserve ratio. Because until this token, all the reserve ratios in Bancor were CRR, constant reserve ratio. And this is the first time that we're using a DRR, dynamic reserve ratio. In this case, it changes over time according to definition of the allowance.
Yeah, no,
And
I read that article and I thought it was super interesting. I'm still trying to again understand it because you guys are doing a lot of interesting, you know, economic models that takes a little bit to understand. But we only have 4 more minutes left, and before again, uh, I have created a token, discuss token. So if you're listening to this now and you want to get your hands on some discuss token, all you need to do is go to deweb, create your own account, and leave your account, your deweb account, down in the comments. I'll send you some discuss, and you can kind of participate in our Up for Discussions podcast. You could choose the topic of what we discuss. So I want to thank you very much again, for coming on to the show. Again, love to have you back once the project levels more and once I understand a bit more how the mechanics behind it works. And yeah, so people could find you on Twitter. They could this Telegram group that will include down below if you want to find out more about the deweb project. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.
thank you so much for having me.